Rated Gen Z, where real talks get real. Each episode dives deep into the minds of 18 to 24-year-olds, exploring their dreams, struggles, and perspectives that most people never hear. We're diving into the chaos that defines a generation everyone talks about, but nobody actually listens to. This isn't just a podcast. This is a generation speaking. If you enjoyed this episode and you're between the ages of 18 and 24 and would like to be a featured guest, go to rock.vision. Until next week. Welcome to the Rated Gen Z podcast, Lachelle. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm excellent. You just mentioned to me before we started recording that this is your first time being on a podcast. So I'm very honored. We don't know very much about each other, so I will let you go ahead and do your introduction if that's okay.
Hi, listeners. Hi, guys. Yes, like Raquel said, this is my first time on a podcast. I'm very honored to be here. My name is Lachelle. I'm 20 years old. I am a marketing intern. I'm here on behalf of the DMAX Foundation. I'm a rising junior at Cheney University, the first HBCU, and I'm just excited to talk about mental health and the DMAX Foundation, a little bit more about myself, and yeah.
Well, welcome. That was perfect.
Thank
So yes,
you.
that's how we met, through the DMAX Foundation. I guess I could say that I'm going to be doing some collaboration with your foundation. So I'm excited about that. So why don't you share a little bit about what the foundation is? Because I feel like once you explain it, people will understand why I've aligned with all of you. And then I would love to hear why you got into the mental health space as well.
DMAX Foundation was started in 2013 with our founders, Lee and Lori. They started this foundation because they lost their son, Dan, to suicide, and they felt like they didn't create a space to talk about their struggles. So the mission of the foundation is they wanted to create a space where young adults could openly talk about struggles and mental health and emotional well-being after experiencing their loss. And so now it's like over 10 years since the foundation was started, and I joined my freshman year at Cheney University. It was one of the first clubs that I joined. I heard about it through a friend, and so the first event that I went to was a table talk where my peers and we talked about the semester. We talked about, common struggles, like college things that were on our minds. And I actually met one of my great friends from the foundation. And just personally, it was just great to have a space where everybody was vulnerable and mental health was encouraged, and everyone has a story to tell, and I feel like it's really important for young adults, especially like my peers 19 to 21, to just know that their voices matter and that their stories are heard. And so for me, it honestly changed my whole college experience, just knowing that I wasn't alone. Like, I was a freshman, I was new, I was scared of like, what's going on? But like DMAX Club, they actually encouraged those conversations. And so I know that I wasn't alone. And fast forward, I've been with them. I've been active in that club as a general member, but last semester, fall semester, I stepped up into a leadership role as media manager. I'm currently studying communications, so it aligned with my career goals and with my personal goals. So I felt like it was perfect for me. Mental health was something that I value ever since, high school. It's something that I personally struggled with. And so just to work with a brand whose mission is to create that safe space for young adults, it just felt like a perfect fit for me. And I get to, create content and, for the club at Cheney University and share the events that we have. Like, we had an event last spring where we had pet therapy, We had dogs come in and just to help de-stress the students during finals week. And that was such a great way to just bring activity and, just, foster emotional well-being to the students. And we also had a women's purple table talk where it was girls only. Sorry, guys. And we did face masks and we just talked about how our semester was going, how did we feel, and it was just honestly great to openly have that space. And whatever is talked about in those table talks stays there, and it was just a great opportunity to honestly just meet new people and get things off your chest, if anything, because mental health is very important and it should be talked about.
As you were talking, I realized that your generation is really more open to vulnerability and opening up, which is great because I don't know if you know about my story, but I actually had a failed suicide attempt when I was at UCLA in college. And I was around 20, 21 years old. Had there been something like, DMAX Foundation or just other organizations where I could openly speak about what I was going through. I had a therapist, but I feel like it's different, when it's a therapist or your peers, because with your peers, you can relate and then you don't feel so alone. And so as you're talking, I think it's just fantastic that there's organizations like this across the US. I know you're based out of Pennsylvania, but you're in how many schools right now? How many universities?
So DMAX, we are looking to like grow across
Okay.
all campuses. I know that they have Cheney, Penn State, Pittsburgh, New York. I don't know exactly, what schools, but there I know we're looking forward to grow in Temple as well. So just like any college or anybody who's just looking to step up and to start that club organization on the campus, DMAX will help, fund them and like give them tools and give them like conversation starters as well. So I'm just really glad that more schools and more like, peers and, students like me are like stepping up into these roles and realizing, how important it is to have these conversations and to have them on college because it can be a difficult, transitional period. And just having like conversations that matter and like checking up on people is really important because like you said, like you never know. It's not a solution. It's not, exactly like professional help, but it does make all the difference knowing that there's people like the same age as you who cares and wants to have that conversation, and it can make a tremendous difference just knowing that you have somebody in a community to like lean on. So that's what I really truly appreciate about DMAX and like my club members at Cheney University as well.
That's wonderful because I remember when I shared my story, I shared it on LinkedIn and I was connected with a lot of people that I went to UCLA with, a lot of sorority sisters. And when I shared that I had a failed suicide attempt and I never spoke about it because of the stigma and I just didn't want to be labeled. I can't tell you how many of my sorority sisters and college friends reached out to me separately and said I had no idea, first of all. And second of all, they were also struggling as well. It just made me sad to think that here we were struggling alone and in silence because we were scared to talk about it. Because at that time, I was in the mid 90s. It still wasn't cool to open up and be vulnerable. And now I feel like it's so different. And so that's one thing that I love seeing with your generation, that you guys are willing to share things that are going to hopefully change the narrative around a lot of things. And so I want to know with you in particular, was it like easy, difficult for you to open up in the beginning, or did it take some time?
For me, I feel like I'm very open, so I'm very like vulnerable. I love that, DMAX is a club where I can just share how I'm feeling because I feel like I personally really needed, that outlet in that community. So I always felt like safe within that. But, just kind of being in so many like table talks and going to so many DMAX events, I do notice that there are people who like the most that they can do is just show up, and it may take them, a little bit more time to be comfortable and like kind of share what's on their mind. And that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly normal. Like DMAX is very, to me, like when I go into the space, is very laid back and very comfortable. And so I feel like the job, for the student leaders who are like actively working in the club, like our conversation starters, they kind of facilitate like those conversations. And what kind of helps is just like having icebreakers. And, you know, it's great to talk about like the heavy stuff and like the things that's stressing us, but to kind of help make it a little bit more fun, I feel like like at Cheney, we give out like stress balls. We had like a slime event. So it's not always just like, just always talking about the heavy stuff or just uncomfortable. I feel like just kind of mixing that with, events and, kind of making it more interactive. And one thing I do love about, DMAX, especially at Cheney, is that with our conversations, you can kindly pass, you can kindly skip, and that's okay if it's too much for you. And one thing that we do encourage is that, if you don't feel comfortable like talking out loud or talking in the circle, like we do have counselors on campus that kind of sit in the background, and, they're always open to like talking one on one if that's what the person truly needs. And yeah, I just love how like inviting it is. Like we kind of have like the serious conversations, but we make sure that, we're still having fun because like this is what college is for, and I really love that the community that I'm around, that we're able to balance it. And I feel like that's also very important because like, we are human, we have these struggles, but there's also like a lot of positive things that, you know, in the college experience as well that we can focus on. Like I feel like the pet therapy dogs was just, it was just really great to have on campus, just to have some animals around.
Yeah.
And it was just really refreshing, honestly. So it's definitely like a balance. It is like being vulnerable and being open is hard. Like it takes time for people. I hope that DMAX, like over time, like the more people come, the more people know about the mission, the more people know that, okay, this is a safe space, that we are all like essentially like in the same boat together. Just being open and just getting comfortable and growing, together.
Well, you hit a good point where it's important to balance. I'm someone that loves to laugh and I like to be goofy and I like to just make light of things. So even when I talk about my situation, I bring some levity to it because it really is important for us to be able to also laugh and have
Yes.
fun. Because, I mean, I'm sure you've heard the saying that laughter is the best medicine. And I believe it truly is. I mean, when you have a good belly laugh, I mean, you just feel so good and the endorphins and the dopamine and everything. So yeah, it's really important that yes, there's going to be some heavy stuff talked about, but at the same time, you got to have fun. And plus you guys are young. You're already growing up so fast in this world. You got to
Too.
play and still be a kid.
Yes, I definitely feel that. I feel like college sometimes it can get like serious, but then I'm like, wait a minute, we're still in that in between where we're like growing up, but we're not yet in the real world. So like, let's just like, okay, let's enjoy where we're at because don't want to grow up too soon.
Absolutely. No, I'm glad that you at least acknowledge that. It's so important because once you get older, believe me, you're going to look back and be like, gosh, maybe I should have had a little bit more fun or not taken things so seriously and just kind of appreciated the moment and being present. So what do you do outside of the organization and outside of school? Like what hobbies do you have or what are your interests?
Well, my interest outside of school and like work, really, I really love to paint and journal. I feel like that like calms my mind. I feel like I need to do something like creative. I need to create something. And so just sitting down, pulling up like a Pinterest inspo pic and just painting on a canvas, listening to some music. I feel like that puts my mind at rest. I love journaling. I love like going out for walks. I feel like that, calms me down and helps me with my emotional well-being. I love hanging out with friends, like going out together shopping. I feel like that's the best remedy sometimes for me. Maybe not, maybe the most expensive, but just being around my friends, I feel like I would consider that a hobby. I feel like anything really creative, like even writing creatively and just pouring out, writing a story that really just gets my imagination going. So I really love anything I can get on and just make something out of it.
Can relate with the painting. So I come from a family of artists. My mom's an artist, I'm an artist. Unfortunately, I haven't done it in a while, but when I had my own place in Virginia, my go-to was at night, I would just play my music really loud in my condo and I would just paint on a canvas and just kind of see where, like, what would go with it. Like, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, it was all just based on my emotions because I'm not really good at sharing my feelings and emotions. So for me, the art is a way for me to do that and express myself. So I love that you do that as well because that's another thing too that makes a huge difference. That's why art therapy I think is so important as well.
Yes, I love painting. Like I'm not the best at it. I'm not the best at drawing, but I love that it's like the saying that art is subjective. So I'm like, okay, this is great.
Yeah.
It may just be like a lot of colors on a canvas that doesn't make any sense, but I'm like, I feel good after this. This is beautiful.
Yeah, well,
For
hopefully anybody listening,
$1,000.
yeah, maybe they'll decide to start painting because they're like, okay, if these two women are raving about how it helps them, then maybe they can start too. And the journaling, I'm finding that your generation too is all about journaling. Like I wasn't into journaling. Like we had our Dear Diaries, like I don't know if they still exist, but we had our little diaries with like the little locket and the key. Like it was a big deal, but I was like really bad at writing stuff down. So I never was really into it. But yeah, I find that you guys are journaling more. I think that's fantastic.
Yes, I feel like journaling, just like you mentioned, kind of gets a bad rep. I mean, I did, when I was younger, had a diary, like, dear diary. Then I realized that this happened today. And then I realized that I love doing that. I love telling my diary everything, but I'm like, okay. It may sound a little, childish to call it like a diary, but okay, so I'm just gonna call it a journal. Like it's
there you go.
I still sometimes do their diary. Like, this is what happens. Like just letting the piece of paper know like everything that happened. And I'm like, wait, like I love this.
Yes.
And I also like I don't know. I know there's some research behind it, but I feel like everything is very technology based. You can you can write in your notes, you can, do a voice recording, but I feel like nothing helps me better than putting like a pen to paper and just knowing that, just closing it, knowing that this exists. I did it. I wrote it. These are my feelings. And then the beauty of it is that I can open it. I can flip through, okay, this day I felt sad. This day I realized that things got better and you can kind of like see your progress with it. And so that's what I love about it. But to do that, you have to be consistent, which is something that I'm not the best at. But when I can and, when it's on my mind, I love to journal because it also gets me off my phone. I feel like that, especially with my generation, that tends to generate a lot of anxiety and just, it's a lot sometimes to know everything. And I do love a good doom scroll, but sometimes I'm like, okay.
We all do. But I was going to ask you because you're talking about journaling, you're talking about how you love pen to paper, all these things that are kind of considered now like antiquated, right? I don't even think that they teach cursive in schools anymore. So like I like to write in cursive still. Like there's something about that. So I wanted to ask you, are there things that you have seen that we grew up with, like our generation, Gen X, or like my parents, the baby boomers, that you wish you had like now when you see, because I'm assuming that on social media you get to see a lot of accounts Like I follow 80s accounts because I grew up in the 80s and a lot of it's so nostalgic. So I'm wondering if there's things that you've seen that you've wished that you guys had today.
I feel like that's a great question because I feel like I love my phone and like it's such a great thing to like have the technology we have today because there's so many like jobs like you can do from it. But if like there's something that I could choose, honestly, I would kind of choose to get away from social media. I know that like with millenniums, like there was social media. I know like Facebook was very like was the it platform if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And so maybe I would say like like maybe less of like an actual phone. So I know like pagers and stuff was the thing.
Hmm.
Because I've realized like, even I'm guilty of this sometimes is I'm not in the moment because I'm on my phone or when I'm out with my friends, when we all have downtime, the first thing we do is pick up our phone and check it and we kind of sit in that silence. But when I kind of make it a goal to like break out of that because again, I know it can be anxious. I know it's very easy to like fill, time with just scrolling, but I realized that no, I'm hanging out with you. I want to have that like face-to-face connection. And sometimes I wish that kind of social media was omitted because with my generation, a lot of things are, did you see what he posted? Oh, he didn't like my post. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. And I'm like, okay. When I'm talking to people like my mom or like people from other generations, they're like, what are you talking about? So that means nothing. It's just a like. It's just back in my day, we didn't have social media.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so this is, made up and it holds a lot of weight because, Gen Z makes it kind of that way. We pour our lives into social media. And so I do wish that, if I could change anything, that everything wasn't necessarily shared and that there's just a level of mystery because I really enjoy quality time
I'm writing that
and
down, by the way.
I
Because these are things
really
that like there's like a misconception with your generation. And so I like to write this stuff down to kind of tell people like, no, there's definitely youth that wish they didn't have access to everything. And yeah, that there was still like
yeah.
mystery and boundaries, right?
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, exactly. Like you said, mystery and boundaries, because it's definitely blurred. It's like, okay, like what do I share? What do I not share? But just knowing that, my real life experiences, my face to face, the things that I don't share on social media is more precious to me than the things that I do share because, it's for me, it's in my head. It's
Hmm.
not for everyone. And I don't know. Maybe I just do love the mystery
No, I
of
think
it
that's
all.
great. I mean, it's funny because, there's that whole thing where everybody's like, if there isn't a picture and it's not posted, then it didn't happen.
Right.
No, it did happen. And you can have that memory to yourself and you can have that experience to yourself. I mean, I've traveled to other countries and nobody had known because I never posted it to my social media because I made it a point to be like, you know what? I want this to be for myself. So I have all these videos, beautiful pictures, everything. And of course, there was a part of me where I'm like, I want to post and I want to share, but I
Right.
had to remind myself, why am I doing that? If I post, like, I feel like
Right.
sometimes all it does is just make someone else compare their life to your life. And so I made a very conscious effort not to post. And there was something about it that was so liberating traveling, knowing that I didn't have to worry about my social media and having the picture look perfect, that the trip was just like different. It was a different experience because I know what it's like before and after. Like a lot of you don't know what it's like before social media.
No.
And yeah, so that's why I wonder, like, if you guys see things that we got to experience that you guys were jealous that you didn't have the opportunity to do that. I'm finding that more of you are seeing that and kind of being like, this sucks. But at the same time, there's positives to it. And
Yeah, for sure.
it's trying to focus on the positive, which I think your generation's starting to recognize too, because you had to give it time. Like you had to give social media time to see how it was going to affect you mentally. And so
Mhm.
I feel like you guys are starting to recognize, and now try to take the power back, where I think maybe before you didn't have like the power to kind of control it. And I feel like you guys have that power now. Do you feel that way? Like now you can control what you want to look at, when you want to look at it, how it's going to affect you. Like, do you
Yes,
feel in control?
definitely.
Yeah.
Like personally, like a lot of my mental health and like my anxieties, I would say did come from my phone, did come from comparing, did come from, they're out having their best life. They're having these amazing college experiences. They're on these amazing vacations. And I'm just sitting here like scrolling, looking at it, comparing like, what am I doing? And I'm just like, I'm in bed, just doing nothing, watching everybody live this perfect life. And, it took a lot for me, like you said, to take the power back and realize, again, one, social media is showing highlights. People are showing you what they want you to
Yes.
see. It's a very curated. And two, I had people say to me when I would post like the perfect vacation picture or just post a beautiful sunset in, California or, just all these different places. And they would say, I want your life. And I'm sitting here like, you do not want my life. I'm going through so many like mental health struggles. Like,
Right?
you do not want it. But from their point of view and
Mhm.
from their screen, they're like, look at Lachelle. She's like, and from my social media account, I'm like, I can't blame them because that's what I'm intentionally or not intentionally presenting. And so right now, I feel like I am choosing, like, I do have the power back and I am just more intentional on what I use social media for and kind of like what am I seeking out of that. And I also kind of just give myself a time limit because it's so accessible that I can be here consuming. And as much as I love to consume, I love to create.
Mhm.
And like it's taking away time from, me actually using, the platform to create and share, things that I love to do or, use my skills in marketing and, create, curated posts for companies that I love and that the missions that, align with my goals like DMAX. And so I definitely do feel like I'm taking the power back and I feel like there's still kind of going to be this fear of missing out because I know that a lot of my peers still kind of rely on that app and rely on social media and may not have the power to draw back. And there's going to be posts like circulating like every day, all day. But I just have to, like you said, set that boundary and, turn my phone off, go journal, go read a book, go like do these things. And I
But it's
feel
not
like
easy, you
it's
know, like,
not,
yeah,
it's
like it's not
not.
easy for me either. Like, I think people have to acknowledge that we have to give ourselves grace too when sometimes it doesn't
Mm,
go as planned, or maybe we do end up doom scrolling, or we end up getting caught up in our head and
right.
comparing ourselves. Like, it's going to happen here and there, but as long as we catch it, acknowledge it, give ourselves grace, be like, okay, moving on, it's okay, you had a moment there, and we're all human. Because that's the thing too, is I
Yes.
feel like it's like all or nothing, right? Like it's either right or wrong, like there's no gray area. And I feel like it's important to acknowledge that there's always going to be some gray area with things. And so as much as you're talking about your experience, there's going to be moments where you extend that time limit on your phone one
No, we're
day.
literally 15 more minutes and it's like a whole 30 minutes later, but it's
Yeah,
okay.
right. But then it's also being like, okay, it's not the end of the world, because then you can get caught up in that too, right? Of like, my gosh, like I couldn't control myself and I'm so disappointed and all of those things. And so it's really important to understand how we talk to ourselves. So I love that you're sharing things that you do to help you. You're also being vulnerable about what, your kind of your thoughts too when it comes to social media and the comparison and the FOMO and all of that. But I would love to switch gears and ask you, with your communications degree that you're getting, like, what is it that you want to do in your future with that?
Well, thank you for asking
Yeah.
that. I definitely agree with you on the grace. That's like really important. It's something that I'm practicing, that we're all probably practicing right now. For my communications degree, funny enough, I do want to be a social media manager for like brands. And so now like I feel like just studying it, communications, and knowing that there's different ways to like share and market brands. Like social media is one of it, and because again, I feel like my generation and me, I've grown up with it. I feel like I know it, from front to back. But that also, again, just comes with balance, like knowing that, okay, it's like social media can be used for good. It can be used to help market brands and get their outreach and, reach their audiences to young adults. But it's always like a balance. And so I feel like definitely studying my major and studying, the marketing techniques that come with it. I feel like it's teaching me, it's kind of just letting me know that, there are ways that can be used for good and there are ways that it can use for harm. And so I feel like as I interact on social media and as I'm studying it, it's just making me reflect back on myself and reflect how I use it. But I know that it's a tool that being a social media manager and, digital marketing is something that's very popular right now and very popular, with Gen Z because, this is like catered to, I would say, our generation, because before, you would have the traditional marketing positions, but now since things are digital with technology, it does open up all across the world just because of a laptop or just because of social media. And one thing I do love about social media, I can say, is just the outreach and the audience, and that you never know who's going to view your content, who's going to like see the post and resonate with it. Just how one share, one like, one comment, like it can change everything. And so I feel like the outreach is literally limitless. And so just to get the message, get your brand, just to get your mission out there with one click, one tap. And I just feel like I just love helping people. I love how many ears, how many eyes, how many people can I get this to connect with and resonate with? One thing that I love to do, I love editing on Canva and editing on TikTok and just, the fun little memes and sounds. And
Well, I might have to
it's
get you to manage some
great.
of my social media because I have to add another social media page, another IG account for my movie, for my I Hear You Gen Z documentary, and
Wow.
I was getting ready to do that today, but maybe we'll have to talk because I
That's
already
how I love
manage
to
4
do it.
accounts.
I love creating accounts. Like I feel like it's fun. I've always like what really got me into this field is really like even prior. I knew this was possible because I don't know if you're familiar with like fan accounts and just like,
Yeah.
that. I feel like that's just really fun. You get to build a community over, your shared interests. And some fan accounts have even like thousands and
I
millions
know.
of
I've
views
seen that.
just for sharing their favorite celebrity or sharing what they like. I'm like,
Yeah.
this seems fun. I'm already on social media a lot. Like, this, why not? Like, do this for like a brand, like
hmm
just think bigger. And so I just
Yeah.
love how the options are limitless, how the
Yeah.
people you can connect with are limitless, and it just has no boundary on,
Well, on the opportunities,
location.
yeah, because
Yeah.
I've gotten opportunities because of how I put myself out there on like LinkedIn and other platforms. So there's definitely the positive there where it opens up a world to opportunities and things that you couldn't have imagined. Like I never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing right now as with a podcast, with a movie, all of those things. And at my
Yes.
age, most people at my age would not be doing this, but because of social media and the community that I've built and just what I've put out there, I've been able to be relevant, if you will, which is kind of cool because we're not getting any younger, unfortunately.
Yes, it's definitely like very cool and interesting. Like even like with your movie, I feel like, like the movie industry and the documentary industry and the film industry has always been there, but now I feel like with social media we have the power and the platform to just do it without any barriers.
Mhm.
And so that's one thing that I do love about that.
No, that's great. Well, I'd loved talking to you, and we'll go ahead and close it out. So I didn't know if you had any closing remarks or anything that you wanted to say before we move on.
No, I Definitely really love this episode. I feel like I can talk on and on.
Yeah, no, I can too,
What I
believe
love
me.
about podcasts.
That's why I host one, because I can talk all the time.
It's such a great opportunity. I feel like, with the topics that we cover with social media, mental health, the DMAX Foundation, all those are like really relevant, with Gen Z and today. And I just thank you for, allowing me to have an opportunity in a space where these topics are talked about because it is important. And I just thank you for like having me and having my voice heard as well because, it does matter.
It does. No, everybody's voice matters. And I just feel
Yes.
honored that I get the opportunity to share voices like yours that especially have never been on a podcast or been able to talk about these things openly, publicly, like on this type of platform. So for me, I
Yes.
love that I'm able to do that for all of you. So it's also very humbling at times for me, where I'm like, can't believe I get to do this.
Well, thank you.
Thanks again. And I'm going to reach out to you and talk to you about
Yes, I would love
maybe
to
working together in
conversate
some
more.
capacity.
Yes, it was really nice meeting you as
Yes.
well.
Thank you, Lachelle.
If you enjoyed this episode and you're between the ages of 18 and 24 and would like to be a featured guest, go to rock.vision. Until